Welcome to the Therapists Uncut podcast, where off-the-clock therapists who happen to be friends share their uncensored thoughts about real life. Join us weekly in spreading positivity and making mental health relatable through casual conversation, inspirational stories, and real talk with friends who happen to be therapists. Please welcome your co-hosts, Nikki Young and Alyssa Nahara.
Therapists Uncut. Welcome back. Thanks for joining us. Here I am, Nikki Young, here with my fabulous co-host, Alyssa Nahara of Small Town Counseling. And Alyssa Nahara, the rock star.
What a wonderful introduction. I feel like I just walked into a wrestling ring.
Maybe I need a side gig.
I like it. Welcome back, guys. Today we are going to be talking about all of the educators. If you are in the education field, today's episode is for you, because we can't imagine how unseen or underappreciated or unacknowledged that you guys might be feeling right now. And we want to make sure that we focus on you and show our appreciation and really give you guys some tools today to help you get through your academic year.
Heck yes, because what would we do without you guys? And I feel like what Alyssa said in regards to feeling unheard and underappreciated is likely true across the board. But within the last year, we feel like it just amplified, right? The amount of turmoil that you all are managing with your heads held high for the most part, not that you have to, is just awe-inspiring, actually. So we wanted to make sure we give you guys some time.
And let's talk about the struggles of an educator pre-world pandemic. Like that alone was already stressful, right? I know that Nikki and I have had experience working with educators and administrators in a clinical aspect, but we also have colleagues and friends and family who are in that field too. Absolutely. And it's been hard, right?
Absolutely. I mean, my teacher friends and family are the ones that are grading papers at 10:30 at night after their family goes to bed. They're not getting paid for it. And it's not because they took off early. It's because they worked all day and there's just not enough hours in a day. So teachers are workhorses from my experience.
And you guys are working under an organization, this huge umbrella with lots of policies and procedures and red tapes and things they can do and not do and say and not say, curriculum that I can present and not teach on. So you guys naturally already are working under a lot of stress and being able to navigate all the organizational pieces and then drop in your own personal stuff, managing that before you walk into a classroom full of 30 kids. And then think of any colleague, peer management stuff that you might be dealing with. Like these are a lot of added layers of stress. And then also, depending on what kind of population or what kind of community you work in, you may be getting exposed to a lot more hard stuff than maybe other districts.
Absolutely. A lot of the socio-emotional concerns and the economic concerns that teachers and educators manage. And let's just talk for a second. For this has always been a glaring aspect of a teacher's job to me, or an educator, really. You have to be on all the time. I mean, think about us. We see clients throughout the day, but we typically, unless you are on the road to burnout, don't see 8 to 9 clients in a day, right? Actually, I know plenty that see much more, but hopefully it's only a couple days a week, and hopefully you're not seeing 40. Anyways, if you are, then we'll see you in our office shortly, because there's no way that that's sustainable for a long period of time. But teachers, like, you have kids in front of you, especially at the K through 12 level, you've got kids in front of you all the time. Like you kind of got to be on. There's not as much off time, I guess, or not the off time, but there's always somebody in front of you.
Even when you're not in the classroom, right? Because you have to present yourself in a very specific way when you are at the grocery store or on social media, if you have social media, when you're at church, when you're at community events. You always have to uphold this very particular presentation. And that can be very natural for some people. And then for other people, it could feel like a lot of pressure having to always be on unless I'm in my house with the doors closed and nobody's recording anything.
Because it really doesn't go well when little Joey sees you in the grocery store with your string bikini and your, all that stuff. You got to have a professional presentation.
I think we've all experienced.
Mommy, is that Mrs. Karen?
There's my teacher. I didn't know that they bought groceries. What are you doing here? Right? right? Kids can only see you in your professional capacity. The fact that you have a life outside of that doesn't exist. Or that awkward moment where you go to the grocery store and there might be a bottle of wine or liquor for the barbecue you have coming up, and you're like, oh, hi.
Alyssa, are you speaking from experience?
I haven't been an educator, but I have worked in community-based settings, and that is a little awkward.
I mean, absolutely, right? That particular point is something that we as therapists are, at least I'm constantly aware of, and I know that you guys are very professional as well. You just have to, regardless of whether you're on the clock, you got to be cognizant of how you present in the community and what kind of model you're setting for those around you. And off the clock therapist.
Which is why we do this when we're off the clock, because y'all get to see us personally.
Yeah.
But for you educators out there, it's almost like you guys are on the clock all the time. Except, I guess, when it's summer vacation, that might feel a little different. But you guys have to always be on.
And even summer vacation, like I don't know how many teachers I've had share, or professors, if you want to look at educators in that manner, they're teaching summer courses, right? And how many K through 12 teachers work over the summer to try to get ready for the next school year. So
it's a lot of prep work. There's a lot of prep work, energy. There's so much effort that goes into the work that you do. And I often hear that being an educator is not always the highest paid, right? You guys don't go into this for the money. You do it because you love it. So today is all about you and appreciating you and saying thank you to all of the K through 12, 0 to 5 university educators and administrators out there. We appreciate everything that you do, including all of the adjustments and chaos that you've been having to go through in 2020 up to now. So we'll go there next.
I mean, you talked about all of the prep work that's involved in being an educator. From what I am hearing from educators, you have that prep work times, 60 this year in terms of how many times regulations have changed, how many times we bounce back and forth between distance and in-person learning, or based on, there's been so many different points this school year, I believe, from what I'm hearing, that teachers have had to completely revamp what they're doing and just do that prep, maybe not completely all over again, but sometimes all over again. So this year we have asked so much of teachers. And I think that as a society, we've given a shout out to all the healthcare workers out there, but we got to give a shout out to all the educators out there that are doing their damnedest to keep our kids afloat and still learning a little something as we navigate this.
And how many professions out there, think about doctors, think about us as therapists, like we don't have parents watching and monitoring our work every day. And maybe it's still happening, but for sure, I know in the beginning, when all this remote stuff started happening, every kid had a parent sitting next to them, helping them navigate how to do distance learning and turn your audio on and problem solve all these technology things. And I can't imagine the pressure of what it feels like to know that you're not only speaking to your teacher, but you're speaking to your teacher times or you're speaking to your students, but your students times 2, 3, 4 people, depending on who was in the room as you were giving your lesson. Like, I feel like that's got to be worse than a principal observation, right?
Potentially. Yeah. Yeah. And this is something that just clicked for me as school districts start to transition some of their classes back to this hybrid, half, in-person, half distance, or fully in person, but some students remaining in distance learning. For some reason, it hadn't clicked for me before. They have kids in the classroom and they're still managing their virtual classroom. Like, to me, somebody who is a very much self-acknowledged single tasker and very aware that that is where I need to stay, like, holy fuck, like, poof, my brain is exploding. I can't imagine trying to split my attention between a virtual classroom and then 12 munchkins running like hellions around. Hopefully the classroom's better made. But you get what I'm saying.
It's like we placed a level expectation on you as the educator from like this bar to this bar. Technology-wise, the things that our culture has now asked you to do used to be stuff that only really skilled people in technology in that field would do, like having a live presentation and streaming it to thousands of people. That's what you guys are doing in the classroom every day. You are doing live instruction plus streaming it to the students who are at home and managing all of the questions that come with that. And I know a lot of you had to take tons of training too to get certified in these specific virtual classrooms and understanding how to use technology to meet your teaching goals in a very non-traditional way for many of you.
And if any of you listeners right now are crying as you're listening to Alyssa talking, you might be an educator.
Or if you're laughing out loud because you're like, how do you know my life? Because we hear it. We hear
and you
about
might
it.
be an educator.
Then you might be an educator.
And really, though, earlier, and I'm thinking back, I had made a comment about our teachers just handling business with their head held high. And I think I want to acknowledge that is not you don't have to be managing this with your head held high. It's okay to be drowning right now. I mean, if I was an educator right now, I would probably be losing my mind. So I guess I want to acknowledge that it's okay to not be okay. And my experience with educators is there's a lot of perfectionistic tendencies, a lot of high standards for themselves. And sometimes a lot of times I'm hearing this idea that I have to be perfect at this. Or if I'm not, I'm failing, when actually you're kicking ass and you're managing a shitty situation the best that you can. And I think that going forward, we are starting yesterday and actually starting a decade ago, but before there was maybe quite the awareness on it, we need to be supporting educators' mental health.
I'm sorry, as you were talking, I checked out because I was thinking about this is what Jolene used to do, is bring us back, and now we're like both. But I checked out because I was thinking of a conversation I had with one of our very good friends who's a professor at a college who moved from in-person to fully remote. And when this all started, I said, gosh, on a scale of 1 to 10, because we're therapists, we like to use scales. On a scale of 1 to 10, how hard has it been to do this? And he was like, on a scale of 1 to 10, it's basically fucking bullshit. I was like, oh, okay. So we're like off the charts. How are you doing? Are you okay? And he's just like, I'm basically talking to myself for 2 hours. Sometimes there's a question that comes in, but I just sit and I talk to myself and I know they're listening. Sometimes their cameras are on. Sometimes they're not. Sometimes they're sleeping and sometimes they have headphones in, but I still have to show up and do what I do. But
yeah, that's true. That would be a very awkward dynamic, I would imagine, for professors who's used to dynamic classes and interaction. It goes from teaching a class to giving a presentation, a 2-hour presentation every day, and that would be draining in its own way.
That's definitely an adjustment, because this guy, he is very much a social being. He's very much engaging. You can't just show up to his classroom and do nothing. You have to show up prepared. You have to show up ready to engage and participate. So for him, this was a huge shift, and he's phenomenal. He's doing great at it. But it was a shift, and he's a very competent person, but it was stressful for him, because it's stressful for us to ask this of anybody to adjust in this way. We all had to do it personally because we had to manage a pandemic, and now take that and put it into your professional role, and here you guys are. So yes, you don't have to be on point 100% of the time. Be gracious to yourself and be kind to yourself. And
now might be a good time to seek out some support, whether that be, and I know I've also heard so much from educators, I don't want to, because a lot of look at us, right? A lot of our friends are therapists. It's the circles we run in. It's the people we know. A lot of educators are naturally friends with other educators, and themes that I'm hearing from friends and family and educators at large is, I don't want to rely on this person next to me right now because they're going through it too. And I've heard that a lot, is why would I put my stuff out there when the person next to me's got the same exact, like we are in the trenches together. It can go south if all you do is complain, right? If all you do is vent and complain, that can get you stuck in a very pessimistic mindset. However, leaning on somebody next to you for support is very different than creating a negative atmosphere. And I just really want to start to change that thought process, that we don't deserve support because somebody else is going through it too. It doesn't mean that what you're going through is any less valid. Right? Or you guys can commiserate together for a minute or gain support, help each other. But it's okay to say, hey, I'm not okay.
Tip 1, utilize the supports that are already in place. Tip 2, as Nikki's talking, I realized, but do have boundaries. If you do have that colleague, coworker, or friend that all they do is dump on you all day,
Totally,
and you're like, I can't do this, then set that boundary and say, hey, I feel for you, but I can't do this today.
totally.
Maybe we could talk about this another day. So 2-part tip for you guys, okay?
And if you are that person, maybe that means it's time to get some counseling or therapy so that you can, because obviously there's stuff going on that you need to release and work through, right? But if you're bringing everybody around you down constantly, maybe it's time to seek out some professional support so you can address those things and also maintain positive relationships with your colleagues.
If anyone has ever told you, I'm not your therapist, then it might be time for you to seek a therapist.
Yeah, that's a clue. And we've talked so much really quick about teachers and professors, and we've been using the term educators, but a lot of our examples have been for those actually providing the instruction. Let's give a humongous acknowledgement to administrators as well, because, I mean, can you imagine all of the macro changes occurring right now and all of the macro issues that they are managing on a day-to-day? They're also trying to keep their teachers and their providers healthy and supported in the midst of all of this, and a lot is falling on them as well. So this isn't just about those in the classroom. Well, I guess in front of a screen, maybe not in the classroom anymore, but this isn't just about those providing the direct service. This is about everybody.
And oftentimes when you're the provider that is not on the direct service level, like in any profession, people can kind of look at your job and be like, what is it that you actually do if you're not doing these other things? And you're like, ask me again what I do. I'll tell you what the fuck I do. I do this. I do 15 things a day. So for all of you who related to that statement, thank you for managing everything Nikki just said and more, because there are so many legislative pieces happening, changes in policies and procedures and requirements that are changing that you guys are constantly shifting. Make sure that your students and your staff are a priority and their health and safety are a priority, but that you're also trying to meet like the social emotional needs of your district. So thank you to all of the administrators out there. I actually have she's my sorority sister and a good friend. She's a superintendent now. And I truly cannot imagine the level of stress that is within her role and her team to now manage all of these changes from the top all the way to all these schools out here and all these families and communities. So legit, thank you guys for everything that you've been doing and will continue to do as we finish out this pandemic and then move into the transition of post-pandemic.
Which is going to be a significant challenge in and of itself.
I feel like I can't even think about what that's going to look like right now.
Right?
Everything is a shit show.
One crisis at a time. Yeah, one shit show at a time. Let's handle this one.
Yes.
We're so busy trying to find toilet paper to handle the current shit show. So.
Another thing that I would like for you guys to be aware of in the roles that you are in is the risk that your professions put you at naturally for secondary stress, high stress. Secondary stress can fall into anxiety and depression. I actually recently had a conversation with a teenager who kind of talked about like, yeah, mom's been off her rocker a little bit. I feel like she yells at me all the time. I know that we don't always see eye to eye, but she's yelling a lot. She's crying a lot. Everything I do pisses her off. And then I have a conversation with mom and she's like, it's been so hard lately. I thought I've been hiding it. Well, not really. Like we think we're so good at hiding it, but we're not.
Yeah.
And secondary stress, guys, I realize that's like basic terminology for our profession, but secondary stress is not the direct exposure to traumatic or distressing experiences, but it's that secondary exposure. So you're constantly hearing about all of these bad things that are happening or wondering about the safety of your children. You're exposed in a secondary way to distressing events, and that can still have an impact on you too. You have a high risk of that having an impact on you, especially if you're an educator that works with minors and you happen to be an educator that works in a district where you're making a lot of mandated reports. You're probably worrying a lot and concerned a lot about some of the safety and emotional well-being of these students. So take care of yourself.
Yeah. And I think just with the current state of how classes are being conducted, teachers have a lot more access into kids' personal lives via a screen than they ever have before. And there's probably, I know there's been witness to a lot more family dynamics than historically. There's probably, I don't know the data, but I would imagine there's been an increase in CPS reports just on things that have been witnessed virtually.
Mm-hmm. So today, guys, we want to wrap up. Today's episode was for our educators, our administrators, all of our school staff out there. Thank you again for what you do. We see all of the stuff that you've been having to go through, all the adjustments. And we're going to end with a few things that you can do to help prioritize your mental health. Okay. So Nikki mentioned one, use your support around you. And then I tagged on to that to say, but use boundaries when it's appropriate. Nikki, what's something else that our educators can do to help take care of themselves?
Me time, or you time. And teachers they're some of the hardest, like I said, they're workhorses, and they're going to say, I don't have time, maybe over spring break, maybe over summer. Nope, not taking that excuse. You need to schedule in self-care. You have to. And you might, like Alyssa said, you might think that you're managing okay and hiding things okay. And you probably are to some degree, but no, schedule in self-care. And for a lot of teachers who function at such a high level and go, you need more than a 15-minute block of self-care time, because it's going to take you longer to actually bring your mind and your body down enough to be able to then benefit from said self-care time. So this needs to be a chunk of time, right? And you will start to learn your body in terms of what that looks like and how much time you need, but schedule it in and do it.
Well said. If you are not doing this next tip already, please take your breaks. They are mandated. They are healthy for you. They are important for your well-being and your energy levels. If you're finding that you're working through your breaks and your lunch breaks, think about what needs to change so you can make time to take a break during your workday, those 5, 10, 15-minute breaks. Definitely do that.
Heck yeah.
Anything else that we want to leave our listeners with today?
Thank you. Like from the bottom of my heart, thank you for everything that you all do. You are appreciated, even if it doesn't feel like it at all times. We see you, we hear you, we give you a giant shout out, and definitely please take care of yourself. And if you are at the point where you feel like these things aren't working and you're going to lose it, please reach out to a professional.
Absolutely. And I will throw in one more thing. When we talk about using support, it is very likely that your district does have a program called Employee Assistance Program, otherwise known as EAP. Most EAP programs have providers that are available to you for free for about 3 to 5 sessions if you do need that professional support.
Use it. Okay. Quick little side skirt story. I made it a whole episode without. I am so proud of myself, but I'm going to ruin it now with a little side story. EAP. Okay. It's most I don't know, maybe all, I'm showing my ignorance here. Is it a legally mandated? Like, do all employers offer it? I don't think so.
I don't think so.
It's a benefit with many employers, right? It's a fringe benefit with many employers. I have a very good friend who's a doctor in the trenches through this pandemic. And the other day we were talking, and we were talking about the mental health effects on healthcare workers. And she said, would you believe that I think their HR had come in and talked with them, that not a single individual in her department had, in a very large department, not like 5 people, not even like 50 people, a large department, not a single healthcare worker had utilized this EAP.
I'm sorry, I'm like trying to hold back my response to that because it's there. You guys use it.
Yeah.
And you know what? Overall, research shows that EAP programs have like a 10 to 18% utilization rate, which means your companies are paying for this for you. And for whatever reason, only 10 to 18% on average are using these services. Do whatever you need to do to find them, access them, and benefit from them because they are for you.
Yeah, what she said.
We're feeling very passionate about this.
Right. All right, listeners, thank you so much for joining us. If you are an educator, again, thank you so much. If you know an educator, reach out to them, check in with them, like genuinely take some time out of your day and check in with your educator. Not just a quick, hi, how are you? Okay, cool, good. How are you? What can I do? Can I bring you lunch? Can I something? how can I be of help and service to you? Because you are of help and service to all of us. So thank you again, listeners. You can join us the first and third Monday of every month. We appreciate you joining us at Therapist Uncut, and we are here to make mental health a topic of everyday conversation.
Thanks, guys, and we'll see you on the next episode of Therapist Uncut. If you have not subscribed yet, please subscribe, follow us on social media to stay up on all of our new episodes.
All the cool people do this. Can I do this? Point down
so.
while you're saying? Yeah? Okay, cool.
All right, we're done. Share this episode with someone you love. We'll see you next time.
Peace.
Thank you for joining Therapist Uncut, a production of AMP Smart Business. To learn more about Therapist Uncut and stay up on upcoming episodes, please subscribe and follow us on social media. As a reminder, although the Therapist Uncut co-hosts are licensed therapists, they are not your therapists. This podcast is not intended to substitute professional mental health counseling. If you need professional therapy, please contact your local provider or primary care provider. Thanks for listening, and we'll see you on the next episode of Therapist Uncut.